Today we're going to be looking at this IBM ThinkPad T60P that I paid way too much for, spending about $80 for it on eBay. My goal for this laptop will be to clean it up, do some maintenance, and upgrade it so that it will make for a nice retro gaming laptop. Once we get that set up, we're going to see if it'll run Crysis. Stick around and we'll see what this thing can do. The ThinkPad T60P was originally released in 2006. Back then, this is when the first Core 2 Duo was released, bringing in a new era of multi-core processing. This particular one comes with the Core 2 Duo T2500, which is a dual-core, but it's a 32-bit dual-core. Not a big deal for me, since I already plan on using the 32-bit Windows XP, but they also have 64-bit Core 2 Duos that would also work on this computer. Well, $80 is quite a lot for an old laptop like this nowadays. Back in 2006, this laptop was one of the most expensive and one of the most powerful ThinkPads that were available. As compared to the T60 ThinkPad, the T60P was the high-performance variant, which featured much more high-end graphics. When I got this laptop, it did not arrive in the best of conditions, although not the worst of conditions either. It did not come with a hard drive caddy or a battery. Also, this little thing on the side bezel ended up being kind of damaged as well, so I'll have to see if I can fix that. Looking at the lid, you can see that there's these stains. If I look a little closer, I think that this is actually mold, so it's maybe kind of a biohazard. I should clean this up. Little did I know that it turns out that this was not mold on the cover. I first wiped the lid with a magic eraser. Then I used 70% rubbing alcohol and softly wiped the lid with a paper towel to make sure that the mold would not come back. You should not do this.
2 minutes later.
Okay, I'm an idiot. So it turns out that this is not mold, but instead this is just the outer rubber coating that's deteriorated. You may have noticed that this looks worse than it did before, and it does. And this is the same day. Once I wipe it down, the nastiness goes away. But if I wait a while, eventually it'll return to looking moldy again. Here's a time lapse. Okay, so I think I'll just deal with that later. For now, I'll just focus on the upgrades and maintenance. I first started by removing the screws at the bottom, then removing the palm rest. Then I removed the keyboard as well. The first upgrade I would do was upgrading this device from 2 GB of RAM to a whopping 3 GB of RAM. It's possible to install 4 GB of RAM, but this motherboard can't address more than 3 GB, even if a 64-bit CPU was installed. Looking at the motherboard, I could see that there is a 3G WAN card installed, meaning back in its day, it could connect to the internet over a cellular network, which was pretty fancy back then. I also removed the Wi-Fi card, since I have no intentions of connecting to the internet with this computer. Next, I removed the keyboard bezel and took out the heatsink so that I could redo the thermal paste. I thought about upgrading the CPU, but I didn't think it was worth it, since the 2 GHz Core 2 Duo should be enough for the games I want to run. Something I found interesting is that the AMD graphics card has the VRAM attached to the graphics card chip, which I haven't seen before. On the heatsink, I first removed the old thermal paste with a cotton swab, and I also replaced the thermal pad for the graphics card. I decided not to replace the thermal pad for the platform controller hub, since that doesn't get too hot anyways, and it also used a thicker pad than what I have. Next, I began opening the fan assembly so that I could clean it out. Once I opened it, I could see that there is quite a bit of dust blocking the vents. I cleaned that out with your sister's toothbrush and also cleaned the dust from the fan as well. I also applied some machine oil to the motor bearings so that the fan could run smoothly and quiet. I put that back together and was ready to apply top-of-the-line thermal paste to the CPU and install the heatsink. I put the rest of the laptop back together and was ready to get it up and running with a fresh install of Windows XP. For the drive, I'll be using this 256GB Micron SSD, which should allow games to run without any sudden lag spikes. In order to install Windows XP, I needed to go into the BIOS and change the drive configuration to compatibility mode. After activating it with my favorite product key, Windows XP was installed. Off camera, I'll install the drivers in some games, then we can test it out. Alright, I was able to get Windows XP and all the drivers installed, and I've got some games installed as well. You may notice that the taskbar is a bit smaller, and that's because this is a pretty high resolution screen. In the display settings, I could see that the display resolution is 1400 by 1050. So this was a pretty high resolution screen for back in the day, and is even higher resolution than some screens in some cheap computers today. I can see the graphics card that I have is the ATI Mobility Fire GL Pro V5200. And I could see that it has 512 megabytes of video memory, which was quite a lot for back then, especially for a laptop. Well anyway, let's get to it. The moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for. Let's see if it'll run Crysis. So it does tell me that the video card is unsupported, but it should still be able to run. This is a workstation graphics card rather than a gaming GPU, but it should still be able to game. Well, at least the boot screen works. So to be fair, I did end up testing this game before I filmed, and I did end up needing to set the graphics settings to a lower graphics settings in order for it to play well. But in low settings, it does run pretty smoothly. Especially considering this graphic card isn't really meant for gaming, but it's still decent for gaming. But really, this isn't too bad. I mean, this feels pretty smooth. It probably is player on a slightly higher graphics setting, but I'm kind of spoiled when it comes to my FPS. Other games like Need for Speed Most Wanted also run pretty well, especially considering that it only needs 256 megabytes of RAM and 32 megabytes of video RAM to run. Which means it could run at a much higher graphics settings as well. Another game I wanted to try was Simpsons Hit and Run. This is a game from my childhood that I played on the Xbox original, and I have quite fond memories of this game. Considering that this game is from 2003, it seems to be running pretty well on this newer computer. Here's a game that I didn't play as a kid. I hear Doom 3 is pretty good, so I'll be playing through it for the first time on this computer when I have the time. It runs pretty decently in high graphics settings, but not so well in ultra settings. Still, this should be more than good enough for me to enjoy the game.
I'm not sure you want to find him. You see, never mind.
Okay, so it runs pretty decently. But what about this cover here? Well, you may have noticed that it doesn't look as bad right over here. Somebody recommended that I put lotion on it, so I'm going to try to do that for the whole case and see how that works out. First, I'm going to shut it down, and then we'll try some lotion. Okay, so I've got some lotion and a microfiber towel. Let's see if that helps. I rubbed some lotion on it for a first time, but noticed some of the blemishes were coming back. But not all of them. So I decided to go over it again, this time using my hands to rub the lotion on. And then I would let it sit for a while before rubbing it off. So I let it sit for a while, and I gotta say, this looks a lot better than it did before. So it wasn't moldy, it was ashy. Just needed some lotion. And now not only does it look nice, but it also smells nice too. It smells like my grandma when she came back from the spa. But I'm not done yet. There's still some things I want to take care of, like fixing this antenna thing on the side, and I'll also want to get a hard drive cover as well. And a new battery would also be pretty nice. The first thing I wanted to do was to fix the crooked antenna enclosure. So I removed the screws and just pulled back this little section. And I pulled out this little antenna piece, and I could see that these are bent a little bit, so I will try to bend this back into place. Okay. That looks a bit better. It looks like I was able to get it back to the way it should. I'll just need to apply the screws again. So I installed the screws, put in a new hard drive cover, put in a new aftermarket battery, and this was the result. I know it's been a while since I've posted my last full-length video. Recently, I've been lacking time, mental energy, and motivation, but I somehow managed to find enough to make this video. A while ago, I had the realization that this YouTube thing was starting to feel like a second job rather than a hobby. When I spend time making a video, I have less time for other things, including enjoying my own computer fixing and collecting hobby. So the past month, I've been working on a few projects on my own time without making a video on it, as I feel I can enjoy it much more that way. That being said, I do still enjoy making videos, but not as much as I used to. So I think from now on, I will not put as much effort into the channel, and I will only make a video on my hobby if it's a video that I feel really excited to make. That way, the videos I produce can be a higher quality, but the drawback is that there won't be a consistent schedule, so I don't know when my next upload will be. So until next time, bye-bye now.